recently started having a problem with the refrigerator side of our Subzero 590, and it doesn't seem like it's too uncommon. If you go on the web, you find that there's probably 3 or 4 possible problems that could cause that. So it's a matter of trying to troubleshoot. You know, before I call somebody in to do a repair, I'd like to at least try to get a sense of what the problem is, and if I can fix it, you know, I'll attempt to do that before I call in a repairman. So, alright, so first off, you want to see if the compressor is running. Compressor is up here. Now, I'm not going to give you all the detail, but you do need to figure out how to remove this piece up here, because the compressor is up above the refrigerator freezer. One thing to consider, if you've got no power at all, so the compressor is not running, no lights when you open the door, complete power problem, you know, first of all, check the breaker, obviously. But I just want to show you, I've done this before. This has happened twice over the years. This is your power coming in, okay? I'm not going to do this, but if you remove this panel, it exposes the wire connection, the incoming power, right here. So there's a cutoff switch right here, okay? So you can turn the entire unit off with this switch. So incoming power comes in, and you'll see when you remove this cover that you know, it gets wired to the switch, and then it goes on to the refrigerator freezer. This switch has failed on me twice over the years. So the symptom was no power. So if that's the case, you know, take off this plate, take a look. You can easily just remove the contacts and test the switch. In my case, you could even see like there was, you know, it was kind of, looked like it was kind of arcing and, you know, kind of burned a little plastic. So, you know, it was kind of obvious that that's where the problem was. So, anyway, let's move on to my problem. This is, I've got power, obviously, compressor's running. I'm not sure if you can see this, but there's a compressor fan right here where I'm pointing. Now, as part of maintenance, you should be trying to keep the compressor, this area here should be clean, so periodically you should be vacuuming that out. If you haven't done it, when you remove this cover, you're going to see there's a lot of dust in there, and it all goes on the fins, which can actually block the airflow, which you know, takes away from the efficiency of the unit. So you want to make sure that's clean. The compressor fan is running, and you can hear the compressor. So you want to make sure that that's okay. Now, if it's not, you've already got a problem that's beyond what I would do as a home repair, as a DIY repair. But in my case, everything was running, compressor's running. So now I come to the refrigerator, and up here there's a fan. Okay, this is the evaporator fan. Now what should happen is, lights off, just because I have that taped up here. I didn't want the light to continuously be on, but the refrigerator is powered right now, and there is it's calling for cooling because it's set at 7. So the fan up here should run when the door is closed. Now, to simulate the door close, I'm going to push on this button. Now the fan is not moving. I can see it. You probably can't see it on video, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these 2 fasteners, and I'm going to remove this plate so you can see the fan. Okay, we're back here. You can see the fan. I'm going to push this button. The fan does not go on. Alright, so now we can suspect it could be the evaporator fan, but it could also be the cold control. The thermostat that actually calls for cooling, because if it's not calling for cooling, this fan's not going on. So what I'll do is I'm going to take this area apart and I'm going to test for power at the fan. If the fan's getting power but not spinning, then I know it's the fan motor. So the way I'm going to do that is I don't need to remove this area, but I do need to remove this plate. Okay? The way to do that is there's a fastener right here, just one. Okay? You're going to have to remove your fan cover. This whole plate is going to, so the fan cover is removed and it's barely going to clear this, but this whole plate tips backwards. Okay? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but yeah, there it goes. Okay? So the whole plate tips backwards, and then you're just going to pull it back and remove it. So let me do that now. Okay, the fan connection is now exposed, so I'm going to disconnect this connector and I'm going to put a voltmeter on these two wires, this red and white. Okay, so what I did was, I can't do this with the camera, but I put a voltmeter on these two pins, left and middle, which are red and white, and then I came to my button and I pushed it, and that should put 120 volts on those pins, which would spin the motor. Now I got nothing. Okay, so what I'm suspecting is there isn't a call for cooling right now, which there should be, because I've got the cold control all the way set to 10. So I'm suspecting that it could be the cold control. So what I've got to do is take apart, that's this area here, and I'm going to bypass the cold control. I'll short it out, which just simulates a call for cooling, and see if I get power here. And let me do that now. I'm going to shut this off. I want to show you something real quick. Again, I'm not giving you all the detail, but there's a plate that goes right here. Okay? That plate's already been removed, but it's very simple. What you're going to do is just take your whole hand and slide it backwards. Okay? So you're pushing the plate that way. There's no fastener. It just simply slides back. Once you do that, it'll clear this part of the control panel. And so then the plate will swivel outward and then take it out. Okay, so that exposes, you know, your cold water tank, your ice chute, and you can see the back of the control panel is exposed here. I can then remove, this is going to be tough, but we've got 3 fasteners, 1, 2, 3, to remove the panel away from the wall. And then there's one, which I don't even know if you're going to see, but it's in here. That separates the like this part, this plastic kind of cover, from the actual control guts, you know, which is this gray part. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to show you, see if you can see in there. That's the cold control right here, and there's 2 wires up here that if I short out will actually make a call for cooling. It'll bypass the cold control. So I'm going to try that now and see what happens. After making the video, I realized that I wasn't clear on how I overrode the cold control, so I just want to point out how I did that. Obviously you're doing this when everything's still installed, so you're just trying to see whether the cold control is working or not. And the way I did that is, you know, again, this is installed in the system. There's 2 wires, one here, one here. The cold control basically makes and breaks a connection between these 2 pieces. So when there's a call for cooling, when the refrigerator is getting warm and it's time to start up the cooling, it just connects these 2 pins right here. Alright, so it's as simple as removing the 2 connectors and then jumping the 2. And what I did was I made this piece right here. That's the same size lug. Okay? So I took the two wires off of the cold control and I connected them with my jumper. Okay, so it basically just makes a connection between the two, and then I just observed, and compressor ran, everything, refrigerator started to cool. So that's how I knew for sure that this unit was the problem. So something else I want to mention is another possible failure when you have a symptom of not, a refrigerator that's not cold, is that you could have a refrigerant leak. And one telltale sign is if you see frost in a small area here and nothing else on the evaporator, it could indicate that there's a leak. So when I removed this back panel, this was the first thing I looked at, because that would have been the most expensive issue, and it's something that I wouldn't be able to do myself, because they have to remove the refrigerant and then seal the system, which would mean replacing lines and then charging the system again. So that's something I'd have to call somebody to do. So I was happy to see no problem here. So anyway, that's one other possible failure that could cause a refrigerator to be warm. Okay, as I said, I troubleshot this system down to the cold control on the refrigerator, so I know that's the problem. So to get at the cold control, I had to remove the control panel, which, it's just tough because you can't really see everything, but this is the cover of the panel, the control panel. And like I said, there's a screw right here that held, let me see, this screw right here held this unit together. It kept it attached. Now once I removed the screw, I figured this cover would just pull off. It doesn't, and I was afraid I was going to break something, because I was really kind of prying at it and it wasn't coming free. So just so you know, there's nothing more than just kind of giving it a good yank, but just be aware that this rocker switch has to clear the opening right here. So what I did was I flexed the plastic out so I could kind of separate the two, and then I also pushed the gray part back as I pulled the panel, this part, forward, and the two separated. Okay, so now I can work on the cold control. So cold control is the upper one, that's the freezer. Now you're going to remove, I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand, but this just slides off. Okay, and there is the cold control. And the part is Subzero 4201270. So I already purchased it, and looks like I'm going to remove these two screws, which will allow me to pull the control backwards and remove it. Now there's two capillary lines here, this one and this one, that run down behind the storage tank, come here, and then one goes down the evaporator, comes out, and here's where the bulb fastens there. Looks like there's another piece that just kind of hangs out into space, and this other one goes down the evaporator, and there is no bulb at the end. It's just kind of hangs about 1.5 inches below. So when you buy the cold control, this is all one piece with these bulbs, with these capillary lines. So I'm going to have to route those lines and get the control part back to here. Let me work on that. Just want to show you real quick. Here's the cold control unfastened. There's this green ground wire that's going to have to slide up. That's the only connection to this other than those two capillary lines here that go through. You're going to see it. There's a hole back here. So I guess I could just snip those and remove everything and then install a new one. Alright, here's the new cold control installed. This is the bulb. The line runs up the evaporator here. Both lines, there's two obviously, and they come through here. Now I removed the water tank just so I could route the lines easier. So I have to put that back in. Actually, I cleaned it out. If you're going to do that, you may as well clean it out because it does accumulate sediment. And here's the cold control here. It's all wired up, fastened. I just need to put my bulb in, dial, and put the cover back on. So actually, before I do all that, I'm going to power up the refrigerator, and we can look at this fan and see if it rotates. So that gives us an indication if the control is working. Remember, that's kind of what started this. The fan was not working, and then we troubleshot to the point where we knew there was no call for cooling. So, alright, I'm going to flip the power switch here. Compressor is running. Look at that. Alright, so that's an indication that we've solved the problem here. So I'm going to button things up and we'll let it cool down and see how things go. Alright, nice. Everything's nice and cold. It's been running for a while, so I'll put the last minute touches on, put the shelves back in. And just to recap, so I had a warm refrigerator. So first thing I did was check that the compressor was running, which you can tell, you can hear it. Check that the fan was running. I also made sure the compressor fins were nice and clean. Then I came into the refrigerator, checked the evaporator fan, which was not running. Then I checked power to the fan. There was no power to the fan, which means there was no call for cooling. So then I came over to the cold control. I jumped it. I disconnected the wires and just shorted and jumped across the two, and everything started working fine. So then it was just a matter of replacing the cold control. And that's it. Hopefully this helps you guys if you have a similar problem.